Don Elworth from Middletown.
You're where from Middletown?
Don.
Don.
Yeah.
From Middletown. I couldn't get the first part, my ears weren't listening.
Spend more time typing in than you can in.
Okay, Leroy.
Leroy.
That's Leroy.
I'm
Vice
Leroy.
President, Club Vice President Leroy.
Mike.
I'm doing stuff, sort of.
Okay, and next?
He's already there. You missed him.
Okay, Marcus,
Davis.
what's going on with you? You doing anything?
No, put down 5 yards of mulch for 9 hours. That was rough.
The hot
In the
weather.
heat?
Is it
No,
the
Are
hot-
you
yesterday.
crazy?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's the hottest day of the
It
year?
was just, no, it wasn't today, it was yesterday.
95 ungodly degrees.
It was yesterday, that was just brutal. Oh boy, that was fun.
Hey, Jeremy, what's up?
Oh, Jeremy.
Let's see,
not very much other than that, updated some virtual machines, but other than that, not that much.
Okay.
Ken Hall,
No. Okay.
what's up?
What's up? Nothing?
Played golf Sunday or yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Got off the course by 9 o'clock. Scored
Oh.
43.
You look kind of
41.
brown there.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. 8 holes, I assume.
9.
9 holes. Okay.
Put in a new thermostat, a Honeywell 8000. It now is Wi-Fi on my phone.
Oh.
I can change the temperature, the settings from my phone. Y'all can't get the password. Can't say.
You want the password?
Give me a couple more seconds then. Question is, does your wife have the password?
No, oh, I'm sorry. Jim's got the password.
I do?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't know he got the password.
We'll try multiple of them. It doesn't matter. If you wake up in the night and it's kind of sweaty, I don't know nothing about it.
That's right.
But
He figured it out.
the Honeywell 8000 is pretty nifty.
Yeah.
How much you give for it?
They sold it at the, we call it the AC company
You stole it at the AC. What?
for $195. Yeah. But I went on Amazon and picked it up for $125. And they had it on the shelf. I had to wait 5 days, free shipping. So it's there's like a $70 difference, $70 markup on the air conditioning company versus Amazon. And I'm sure Amazon made money on the 125.
No.
So you can see that it's probably worth maybe $90, and everybody marked it up from there. But it's pretty nifty.
Cool. Have setback and all that? Setback, so you can change temperature for the time of day?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
And-
Compensate for humidity?
it compensates for humidity, which is pretty nice. Because now humidity in the house is at between 45 and 55. Or outside, it's someplace around 70, 75 and higher. So it controls humidity first, then cools.
Okay.
My name's Roy. You guys inspired me to buy a bunch of Raspberry Pis. So the other day I was reading, and Google's getting more and more aggressive with griping about not having certificates. So I turned a Raspberry Pi into a certificate authority from issued certs for my internal stuff. It's amusing.
You did an inventory on how many did you own?
I have more Raspberry Pis than I own anything else at this point.
Oh, that's not hard to do.
I counted 8 Raspberry Pi 3s. I've got 1 Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. I've got 12 or 13 0Ws. I've got 3 zeros. I've got two 2s and 2 of, I guess they're the original B model, the 1B. Got more Raspberry Pis than I know what to do with. And I'm going to go get more.
But of course,
We need more.
and Patty knows nothing of this.
I used a 0 to get an air-gapped computer.
Yeah, you cannot. you cannot beat the price that Micro Center is selling those for right now, for $5. I mean,
That's
Wow.
a zero or zero?
the zero, well, they're both $5. And you cannot beat that price anywhere. So,
Zero W's for five?
The first one. The
Oh.
second one's 15.
but yes, you can buy one for $5. But
Yeah.
you wanna buy more than one,
It's more,
Well,
it's
you still have
one for customers.
Yeah, I've got a friend that's gone in and out 2 or 3 times in a given hour. They don't stop you.
there's nothing that, I don't really think they care, as long as you don't buy them all at one time.
Yeah, it's kind of silly.
Because I've actually ordered them online. I just put them in the shopping cart. So you know they got a history of all my online orders, and they don't say nothing about it. Just get another Raspberry Pi Zero W.
Well, they're trying to curtail the people coming in and buying 90 of them.
They're
Then
trying.
reselling them for.
Well,
Well,
when they first came out,
Lures to get people in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when they first came out, they
Loss leaders.
you know, you could go on eBay and you were paying $50, $60 for one because they were hard to get.
Yeah.
Now they're relatively easy to get, but you still pay $15, $20 for them on eBay, which doesn't make any sense. But yeah, but
They
yeah,
make the money on the
they're loss
cases.
leaders.
Yeah.
They're loss leaders. No, they're selling the Raspberry Pi Zero cases.
Yeah.
$4. And they're the official case. They're not just some
Chinese knockoff that's.
generic thing that you could buy
That's
from
the
China
official
for a
Chinese.
couple of bucks. Not the official Chinese case. These are the
The knockoff Chinese.
no. These are the official Chinese case, not the knockoff Chinese case.
But they came out of the same plant, different aisle.
But you can't. You can buy cases for them on eBay or wherever for a couple of bucks, and you get usually get plug or something. The official case comes with 3 different covers, plus the actual camera connector cable that you really need, which it was worth spending $4 just for that stupid little cable
You're talking about for the W.
for the W. Yeah,
Yeah, why they put a different size connector on that?
because it could.
Well, they didn't have a lot of real estate to work with.
It's
Well-
about 1 millimeter difference in terms of.
Yeah, but there's probably no proprietary rights to that other one where the other thing you probably have to kick over. It's the same like RJ45 used to be like $40 charge for every jack
Well,
on a printer.
if you want to do anything with the camera though, it's worth spending the $4 for the case because it's got the right cable in it.
What's the length of that cable?
Small.
Yeah.
Hey, big. Play that inch and a half. It's big enough to be used inside the case.
So 0W. Did that do the certificate?
Zero can. And it didn't even struggle with it. I kind of thought it would sit there and crank out numbers for a while, but no, it was too quick.
And they'd have to put it on a USB port on the back of the computer and move the circuit. Wi-Fi connected.
It's the Zero and the Zero W. They're related to the original like the 1B.
Yeah.
But they're very capable. They're capable machines.
It's about the same speed as the original,
It's 700 megahertz. Yeah, it's.
and the original was 8, if I remember right.
I think it was 7.
Oh, okay. Single core.
Single core. It's nothing special, but for $5,
Yeah.
$10, even $10.
They're just trying to come up with something to do with them. That's been my problem. I got my gain, well, I don't have zeros, but I was like, I kind of like the concept that it's small and you can actually power it off some.
I've seen people use them for USB. You plug them into USB and do stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen people use them. I've seen people use the cases and plug them like into outlets and have it take pictures, you know? So,
So I got some USB GPS receivers. And I'm thinking about turning one into an NTP server. Pull the satellite time down and sync everything, because you can never have two right at a time.
Hey, sometimes when the stuff gets out of sync by a few seconds, it's a problem.
Absolutely it is. I've had NTP fail on people's Windows networks where it doesn't think the Windows server's accurate enough. It won't take
Yeah.
their time.
Well, we used to have problems with that international paper because of the original McAfee encryption worked off the time thing. So some of the computers were out of sync by, 15, 20 seconds. That computer, would be like, nope, you're done.
That's not normally, they're not normally that big.
Oh,
I'm kind of curious on that.
It was a bug with McAfee's encryption that, and they used the time stamp or whatever as part of their algorithm, and they'd drift to such a degree, and boom, that computer would be like, nope, or we don't authorize you to do it. And
We had issues at the center where the VM server clocks would drift, and Windows by default took its time from the VM server.
Yeah.
So we'd have entire blocks of machines that would just
be wrong.
disassociate.
Just be wrong.
Yeah, well, no, not wrong. You couldn't log into them anymore
Oh, just
because they wouldn't talk to the domain controllers.
Yeah.
All sorts of fun stuff. And I mean, we spent 2 weeks trying to figure out how to get these things to get back on the right time, and we did. And the Windows update came through and undid all of that work. I apologize. This is my soapbox. I am stunned that companies use Windows to the degree that they do,
Microsoft pays them good.
but they don't.
They pay the person that makes the decision very nicely.
Where's Frank tonight anyway?
Yeah.
They take them out to really nice dinners.
In the time that was happening, I was running about 5,000 servers for them. And it took me 20 minutes to set up NTP and distribute it to about 4,800 of those servers. Just, here's a little script. Do this on these IPs.
I think that's how Microsoft got forward. Is they wheel and deal with the person that makes the money decision.
Yeah.
It seems interesting. Everything goes to browsers. The operating system becomes less important.
Yeah, but
And then there's Bing.
Oh, yeah.
and Edge and IE is integrated into 10. Even though they don't private jump.
There are still some things that you just cannot run, even, software. If you actually have to run a piece of software, you need the OS that it was meant for.
That's right.
Yeah, there are a lot of video applications that only run an IE.
The Allen Bradley PLCs only run on Windows, and it's a real pain.
Yeah, Edge does not work with SharePoint.
What does it work
But
with?
that stuff's gonna be historical soon.
Not
I mean,
much.
sure, I still run a CAD program directly on the machine, but a whole lot of stuff you can run out of the cloud. Most people
Yeah.
satisfy their needs hosted.
Yeah,
I can satisfy probably 95, 98% of what I do is on the cloud, but I mean, I think you, a couple weeks ago, had said we moved towards the cloud and now we're moving away from it again. So we've kind of gone full circle again.
I'm all for the cloud as long as I own the cloud.
Yeah, I agree.
I always thought it was interesting about the Raspberry Pi. $30 computer, you can
damn near anything you wanna do, yeah.
The average user out there can do everything on a Pi. So you're doing email and surfing the web, it'll do just fine.
If I could figure out a way to hook multiple monitors up to one,
Hmm.
that's all we
Yeah.
use at work.
Well,
Well, you can.
Okay.
Well, why can't you,
do fire USB.
I've done,
You're talking about
I did
TV?
the LCD screen, and
No,
then,
no, I mean monitor.
So you
My-
can do all that stuff with the $5.
well, what about,
To
what
use
about
for
like one of the,
RDP connections.
what about one of the 10-inch
Basically.
LCD screens that plugs onto it?
I
And
may have
then
to
the
delve into
HDMI
Raspberry Pi.
I'm pretty certain you can't use
I'm
LTI
getting the,
or
I'm just hanging around you guys,
and
it's gonna
HDMI
infiltrate my spine.
Well, I've done
I know for certain if you're using the official 7-inch Raspberry Pi screen.
the one that actually plug, I'm plugging into the SPI port,
Okay,
and you can.
those
I've-
always seem awfully slow to me.
It's,
I wonder if we could handle a USB driven video card.
one of my friends had a USB monitor, and I plugged it into the Pi, and the Pi didn't have a clue what to do with it.
Yeah.
But it's a driver issue.
I'm just curious, that's what I'm saying, if somebody developed a driver that would run
Yeah.
in the
It was a,
Raspbian or whatever.
I know
Um,
Red Hat did develop a driver for USB video, but I don't know if it's the current chipset.
Yeah.
It was a while ago.
But you'd also surprised that was powered up to the.
well, it showed up in LS USB, and I saw it, but there was no drivers available to make it actually do anything, so.
That's fine, I'm just curious if they could handle it if there was.
um,
It's got enough video on there to technically throw up a desktop.
I'm talking as a diskless workstation for doing RDP connections.
Yep.
And everybody in the company has 3 monitors, and at this point, there's no way you're gonna carry those out of their hands.
Get them one of those big wide ones.
2 big wide ones,
Yeah.
because then they've got 4 edges they can drag to, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah, that's been my problem with the big monitors. It'd be nice if they would let you panel
Yeah.
your documents on the big screen.
If you do 2 big monitors, and 4.
If you don't join the screen as one resolution.
I've got a bunch of the SPI LCD monitor things for the Pi, and I plugged in the HDMI and had those monitors both work. It's basically a mirror.
Okay.
I guess you could tell it to be something different.
I've got some of those. We'll play with that. Might be worth one, but have you ever seen like an SPI to HDMI adapter or something? Because I have an investment at this point of 600. Yeah, monitors.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, you know.
It's not exactly what you
Hey,
want
boss,
to do
we gotta
either.
change 600 monitors.
Well, see,
That's what you do on the day you resign.
I was playing around with one of them the other day, and I was watching a video on the teeny tiny little 3-inch monitor, and I was doing web stuff on my monitor. And it was not the greatest thing in the world because the video kind of got choppy at one point, but it worked. It did what it was supposed to do.
Is that real?
That's my point and shoot.
Are there any large orgs that do like really big deployments of desktops without Windows?
not recently, but like Germany, their entire government switched to Linux for a while, and now they're trying to switch back, and they're about halfway, about half and half. A lot of the people wanted to keep the Linux stuff. A lot of people wanted to switch back. I'm not aware of large desktop deployments, but as far as server farms go, locally, there's at least 5 companies that I'm aware of that have farms of 5,000 machines.
Yeah, this server is a lot easier because, like, I mean, I'd say, like, as a frequent Linux user, do like a very big desktop deployment of it because it's like there's so many things that kind of go weird, especially since like the permission model doesn't really fit like desktop usage as well. And I've seen like users do really scary things with Linux when you leave it in their hands for
Well, you don't
certain
give
amount
them
of time.
administrative privileges at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
And yeah, when you set up Puppet, you can do anything you want with pretty much any number of machines. It's,
oh, you do like a kiosk GUI over it too. and
yeah,
Don't ever,
Well, Raspberry Pi is great for a kiosk.
yeah.
yeah.
I saw something that suggested Google was using Linux desktops internally.
When you hire on with Google, they ask you if you want a Mac, Windows, or Linux box.
Kroger's has almost got rid of all their Windows.
Kroger? No?
No, LaRosa's was all Linux. I don't know if they still are or not.
You said
Pretty sure
Kroger's is Linux.
Who's that?
LaRosa's, locally.
Pizza.
Pizza
Pizza,
place.
pizza.
Pizza.
Cash registers are maintained internally, all the back end is Linux. All the
My neighbor
managers
does
have
their
Linux
web
box.
face. My neighbor does their web face, their all online ordering system.
Oh, really? Cool.
You said Kroger's is Linux?
He may, I don't.
It doesn't surprise me.
Makes sense.
They use it at my church. I mean, it's a big church, and I saw the Ubuntu desktop on it.
Frisch's switched over to Linux. They had thumbprint scanners on all their machines, and when they switched to Linux, those didn't work, so I ended up with about 200 of them.
So they don't use the thumbprint scanner?
They use a different one. They had to go, I mean, at that point, it was another $25 to save $400 per machine per year, so they just decided, yeah, go for it.
So that was the licensing fee?
Yeah, if you use Windows in a commercial setting, it is not cheap.
That's why I always thought it was interesting that IIS even exists. So why in the world would a company pay an extra $1,200 or $1,500 to put up a page?
Yeah.
When Linux does it for free.
Not a page. No matter what you do in IIS, if you just go to the server, you still get that stupid welcoming thing because nobody ever
Gets rid of it.
an index page at the root.
There was a company I did stuff for, and they wanted Windows. I was like, hey, you don't want to do this with Windows. I was like, yes, we do. I was like, no, you don't. I was like, all right. I was like, well, it's going to be, $1,200 for the server and $1,500 or something for the internet license just to jack it into the internet. I was like, they're like, that's no problem. I'm like, all right.
I did a deployment for a company with 24 employees. They wanted 3 servers that were more or less hotspot. They were going to use diskless workstations, and I quoted them HP equipment for the whole thing, ML305 for the servers, and some little Windows diskless workstations, or the same thing with little Linux diskless workstations, both from HP. It was almost $5,000 difference to go to Linux for the workstation. And that was on just this little box that sits on the desk. It was the same box.
To go to Linux?
It was cheaper to do it through Linux by almost $5,000.
My Dell laptop cost more to get Linux on it from the factory.
Not a lot more.
Fair enough, but more.
It's because you had to pay to
Remove Windows.
you had to pay Microsoft to get rid of Microsoft.
Right. In a corporate setting, if you've got a Windows laptop and you run Exchange, you've got a license that you've got to pay for Windows on the laptop. You've got a license for Windows on the server. You've got a license for Exchange. You've got a license on the Windows laptop to be allowed to talk to Exchange. It is just
And
stunning.
those are subscriptions, they're not, you
Yeah.
don't buy the license outright.
And if you call Microsoft and you say, I've got this many people, I want this many machines, and I want this setting, what will it cost?
We'll be like, hold
They'll
on,
give you a quote,
we'll get back to you.
and then you call them again tomorrow, and it'll be a different quote. And then you call them again the day after that, and it's a different quote.
Different.
But the BSA will investigate you and say, oh, you owe us money because you've got these 4 unlicensed machines.
They just want to be your friends.
Yeah.
So Oracle went into this courthouse in West Virginia.
Were they still running Suns?
It was database stuff. They wanted tens of thousands of dollars for licensing.
At GE, when they were setting up their farm, they had officially licensed about 1,000 of the 5,000 machines. When calling Red Hat to say, we're having this issue, whatever, they said, okay, no problem. How many machines have you got? I didn't know that they had only mentioned 1,000. So I told them, got 5,110. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. And proceeded to assist. The bill never went up, nothing.
Really?
They wanted round numbers. They wanted things to the nearest 1,000, not how many do you have and how many people use each one. I don't know. Much more humane. So Leroy.
You ready
Hi.
to go, Leroy? Ready to dance?
Cat dance.
1,000 apologies.
No, it's all right. It's fun talking about the evils of evilness. So, all right. I am calling this the super clock. Dun dun dun. So this is a there's an ESP32 Fire Beetle board and what they call the LED matrix cover. Both of these boards were made by DF Robot. I'll pass it around.
Apologies. The slash and the 0 is backwards.
Okay,
Right.
that's what's wrong with it. Okay.
Sorry.
I can fix that.
What's wrong with that?
Well, I've been looking at that going, there's something not quite right about that, but that's what it is.
So their observation gave you an epiphany right there.
He was doing it from the back.
Yeah.
Program it from the back side.
Well, it's putting it in the mirror.
Yeah.
The library that came with this doesn't actually have a graphic ability. But it does actually have a graphic ability. It's just turned off for whatever particular reason. So I turned it back. I went into the library, I modified the library and turned it back on. The typical way that most of the LED screen or LCD screens, LED screens work is, I think it's pass through, or it's row and column, but it's flipped on its side, and this one happens to be flipped. No, it's more like 180 degrees. It's flipped. Maybe. It's flipped twice, I think.
Let's say they're down the bottom left corner. So,
That'd be
well, that would
47.
make sense because then they get rid of the double negative
Yeah.
coordinate system.
So when I actually made the font for these, I put them in and then I tried to flip them, and I think I know I flipped a couple of them wrong and I fixed it. But when I looked at the 0, I was like, there's something not quite right, but okay, it's a 0. I'll live with it.
Right.
So there is actually a font set that's got the numbers, but what I did was I made it so that you can split it apart and have the numbers slide across the screen. And I'm going to pass it around, and everybody will get to see it slide. And then we'll go along, because I will make this bigger.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
It's fine for me.
Yep, hold it for a minute and you'll see it.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna have to like hold on to it for a few seconds, but you'll be able to see that it slides in from one side and slides out.
That's pretty cool.
And what I've done, I'm gonna let everybody see the first one first. But I set up this web page, so it's running a web page on Core 0. So the web page is 90% always available. Every now and then Core 0 kind of freaks out a little and it's not there, but
How many cores are there in the 32?
yeah, there's 2 cores on there.
Dual core?
Yeah. So I've set up some additional animations, and the reason I did this was originally I just made a scrolling clock, and I didn't really like it. I wanted something that was a little more animated. We'll keep passing it around because every time I change it, we'll see a different animation, and it's easier just to pass it around than try to show everybody. So we'll do the original. So when it refreshes this time, it's going to scroll the way I originally did it. And you'll notice right here, no, it doesn't say. Never mind.
That's kind of hard, isn't it? Yeah, that's kind of hard. I see it. Yeah.
Coming fast and furious.
Yeah, that's kind of.
So you think it's too fast? I can actually on the website tell it to slow down.
Is it slowing down?
So
Interacting with it.
yep.
Cool.
You, Jeremy.
So if you pass it back, if you let Marcus see it again, because he said it was too fast, did it slow down enough for you?
Yeah, it slowed down.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
Obviously slower.
Yeah, that was better. Yeah.
I was starting to go into convulsion.
yeah, well, that's why I didn't like the original. You know,
Right.
it was just too fast.
Or seizures, whatever.
I don't particularly like that. I mean, it's not really readable even when it's slowed down. It's kind of like,
You sort of have to wait for the time. If you really glance up and look for the time, it's like you gotta wait. Oh, okay, to wait for it.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, that's where the other one, I like that.
so this one here, this animation is opposite from this first animation I
Yeah.
showed you. It's just it's actually the exact same algorithm. It's just reversed.
I'll turn it upside down, okay?
Yeah, don't turn it upside down. What are you doing? And so that's, I mean, it's really the say it's slow. I actually slowed that one down a little bit because if you go from left to right quickly, it kind of gets a little jittery. So I slowed it down a little bit to make it look a little better. Is it upside down? Do we know?
It was. Well, 909.
909. But the 0 was right.
So what's the time? Somewhere. With a little jerk.
Actually, I'm using
It's
an
not doing
NTP.
anything now.
It should. It's just going slow. I mean, and then I clicked on slow it down even more. So
Does that guy serving up the web page you're looking at?
yes, the
Is he
web
a
page.
Wi-Fi? Are you on his hotspot?
No, he's on my Wi-Fi.
He's on your Wi-Fi.
See, I know it's still doing something because the colon's blinking.
Time changed.
So we'll click on make it fast again. And it just refreshed. I particularly like this particular animation. It's
What's
called the
epic
slide
scroll?
up. Epoch.
Epoch or epic? Yeah.
Epoch is the epoch time, which comes from the NTP server. It's what is epic? Epoch. 1970. How many seconds have passed since 1970? January 1,
Oh, that's
1970.
epic. That was the last one it popped or whatever.
I particularly like the slide up.
Now, it's gonna be a problem in 2038.
It is. I have to remember this minutia.
Okay.
Oh my God.
It's the Y2K bug all over again.
Is it?
Come on.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Why is it 2038 so significant?
Two to six, because it adds another digit that's not there.
To a 64-bit value.
Well, that's going to be a problem for that.
That's okay, I don't intend to be around then, but, somebody will.
That'd be pretty loud.
So that particular is that doing the scroll up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
20
particular
years.
animation, I'm particularly
Amazing.
proud of that one. I tried to get it to scroll down like a waterfall.
I'd be as old as my dad. He's falling apart right
Just could not get it to do it right. It
Yeah.
just would not do it. So I said, okay, fine. We'll just go with
I'll be
it.
58.
We'll make it go up.
27.
It's not surprising though, because
The after Jim Nick
like I
Jagger's
said, there's
birthday,
not really
Marty Brown.
a graphics library in this library. So trying to make stuff
Oh, did you?
do things is a little complicated in the first place. So I just clicked on center scroll, and it's another one of those that actually looks better if you slow it down.
I am.
So
Now what, now is that just a chopped off zero?
yeah, because when I changed it, it got chopped off. It should refresh here real soon.
Now it changed to 11. Yeah.
If it doesn't refresh soon, I'll do something else. You might want to restart it then if it's not. Yeah. It could have froze up. I added a different mode to it, and ever since I've added this last mode, it freezes up on me.
Does it have an RTC or is it full of NTP or something?
NTP.
It's not gonna display anything until it connects, gets the time.
Oh, it's gotta have a.
I came semi-prepared, just in case this battery. I bet the battery pack died on us.
This one burger. Yeah. LEDs.
It's 228 now.
It's 228.
Yeah, it didn't get its time yet.
Yeah, I don't want data.
After a couple of seconds, it'll.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try the center scroll again. And my own opinion, the center scroll looks better
There you go.
if we slow it down.
6 to L. 6 to L.
I came prepared. Notice I brought an extra battery thing.
Yeah, 'cause you
I
had-
wondered how long it would
That's
go.
right, you hadn't done the analysis to see how long the battery would last, huh? It's like,
Not long, apparently.
that's right.
It'd be like driving an RV or a RC.
So epoch scroll is basically the epoch time scrolling across the screen. It's kind of like the original scroll, and it's boring, and it's long, and nobody understands what that number is unless you're really, really, really good at math, really, really fast. Well, I know it's still working because the colons are blinking.
Yeah,
So
it's ticking away. I was kind of.
there, there it goes.
You know what? Yep. And it reappeared.
See, when you slow it down, it actually moves pretty slow. So my original clock was just the time scrolling across. I didn't like it, thought it was boring. I made all these animations, went yay, and then I thought, wait, what if we need to know what the actual day is? So now when it scrolls across, watch it, Don.
Okay.
Here it comes. Maybe.
Now,
Drum roll.
what about daylight savings?
It's a need club.
In the NTP library that I'm using, obviously there's an adjustment that I can make for various time zones. I didn't see one specifically for daylight savings or not daylight savings, but it's basically the number of seconds. So it's another hour, so it's another 1400.
That hour's 3,600.
I've often
3,600.
wondered how much programming effort has been wasted on daylight savings.
Oh, right, right, that's true, right.
So
I gotta worry about this twice a year.
I'm going to go and speed this
Yeah,
back up a little bit.
It really
so it
messes
goes
up
real
your
fast.
point.
Yeah. We're looking forward. Oh.
So now,
Oh.
so if you need to know the date,
3,600. So technically, you wouldn't do the whole 3,600.
so if for whatever reason you want to know what the actual day is, it's got the calculation in there for
Well, that would be
to figure out, today it should scroll across as Thursday.
Yep.
That's easy. That's easy enough to do. I added, so I can change the brightness. We can make it like bright. I'm doing this all from the website. I can make it not so bright.
Yep.
And you notice it does that almost instantaneously.
Yep.
trying to make the battery last longer.
My actual thinking was, if you're in a bright room, you don't need it to be so bright, or you need it to be bright.
Yeah, it's brighter in a bright room.
If you're in a dark room, you don't need it to be so bright. So you've got,
So basically, you need the dashboard algorithm.
yeah,
I saw an article on using an LED real light level sensor.
To let you know what the level of light is in the room.
Have you seen that?
Correspond to how much power you need.
so I could do very bright. That's the brightest that it can be.
Are there any pins left over?
There are a bunch of pins left over, but in my infinite wisdom, I didn't solder the big pins onto it. I soldered just a standard pin header onto it because I'm not smart.
Without that filter, it's much brighter.
Oh yeah, without the filter, it's very, very bright. The filter came with it, though. That's
You can see it sideways.
so we've got a timer. The alarm part of it still does not work yet. But basically the idea is to set an alarm and then it will send a message to your phone that the alarm's gone off, and it will also actually flash the screen.
Okay.
The flashing is actually built into the library. So that was kind of cool. So I'm going to set the one timer here.
No audio output, right?
There's audio on my phone.
on the,
No, because there would have been, had I actually soldered long pins onto it and plugged it into a breadboard, then I would have stuck a buzzer onto it. Because I'm not smart. I did it wrong.
There's enough room to reach in and put the pin
I'm
top
I'm
and bottom.
I'm going to have to resolder, you know.
I wouldn't try to pull the whole thing.
Right,
So
yeah.
promise.
You gotta see the engineer eventually. You see the engineer, you can go back.
So
You can't do it all at once.
anyway, you see here where I just set for 5 minutes. Now it tells me that the timer is set, yes, and it'll go off when it reaches minute 23. So it's a minute timer. It's not an hour timer. It's not anything else. So you got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and those were all arbitrary to my own discretion. I could have made them any number that I wanted to make them.
I could do an 8.
Yeah, well, that was kind of what I was thinking was, you know, if you had,
Right.
Wh- why do you need to time just a minute? Most people are doing 5 or 10 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes, but beyond that, there's no real reason to be doing a whole lot of timing that I could think of. So, 45's there. I did consider adding a +1 and -1 to it, just so you could change it up a little bit. But the idea is, it's a minute timer, not a thing where you can actually set. If you want to set an alarm, that's something different. That would be, you know, go off at 1:45 or whatever, and that would be an actual time. So it is 6:20, and this is supposed to go off at 6:23. So we'll just let it go. 5 minutes is not long. It should send a push message to my phone as well. That was how, because I did not solder the long pin headers onto it, I decided, well, I still need a way for it to actually notify me if I'm not looking at it. So I decided, most of the time you got your phone, so I'll just have it send a message to the phone.
How often does that check in with NTP? Or how long will it run without being able to connect?
Well, it checks NTP a lot more than it probably should. It's actually checking it every cycle, every time it recycles.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I know.
Multiple
That's a lot of
times a
traffic.
second.
How do you know why the batteries are kaput?
It the NTP example that I had, that I actually kind of copied this code from. That's what they were doing, and I thought the same thing. I was like, that's checking NTP a lot.
It probably doesn't have any accurate timing.
I think it should be as accurate as at least the Arduino, which is pretty good at keeping time.
So
So,
what's he eating there? Is he,
but
you have suet?
I thought the same.
Suet?
God, it's checking it a lot. But I left it the way the original example had it, and it works. And if all goes well, here in another couple seconds, we should hear.
It's in the middle. Can't see it. Oh, that's it right there, a green pin.
So this is it, this is the liquid?
This is sugar and water.
Yeah.
This is
I didn't get my notification yet.
Oh, it's flat.
sunflower, but glycol.
So it's figured it out, it's time.
It's time, but I didn't get the
Other-
notification.
And there's a
Now, that could be
There's a
because
switch here, but
Yeah,
Push
it says
bullet.
Right there, that green cage,
it can't connect to push bullet, or
in the front yard.
Go to Witcher and get some.
push
food.
bullet's just being really, really slow.
Yep.
I'll probably
They
get the
sell them in
notification when I go
packs.
home.
Walmart.
Usually that stuff gets pretty gross after a while.
Sending email?
Push bullet is kind of it's an app that you can install on your phone,
Mhm.
and it's a notification service, basically. For the most part, I think they've got a paid component, but it's mostly free. They give you so many calls that you can do a day, and it's set up mainly for IoT devices
Different
to
camera driveway.
Oh, that's the one that
send
watches-
notifications or
watches
updates
the,
or
This is the
whatever. I've
side.
used it for
package thieves
um,
down in-
doorbell
Yeah.
notifications and all kinds of stuff, and for the most part, it works.
And all these are.
pretty-
What do you have to do
AC
on
power
the
supplies.
IoT device?
It's basically a web call.
Or pipes.
I'll show you the code. I've got the code. But it's basically a web call. You got your, oh, I know why it didn't do it. I don't have my API keys in there. So you gotta have some API keys. I'm running the code that I've got on GitHub, not the code that I made. Duh. So yeah,
Nobody's on.
I will never get a notification because I'm not. So anyway,
Back
You're
barn.
still using GitHub, huh? Even after Microsoft.
Wow.
Is there an alternative yet?
You guys are haters.
No, I don't really care. It's just something I read. I hear GitLab, but I don't, haven't tried it.
I run
There,
a DC
bit-
virus
bit-
under the-
Bitbucket.
Yeah, but.
There's a few. Okay, so
a brush on the bottom.
I'm not happy that Microsoft is there.
So I just run it with a
But
brush. Or phone,
I latched
whatever
onto
it is.
GitHub, and that's where I started at. And until they do something that I really, really, really just
Features
don't
right
like,
there.
They're gonna have to give you a reason to leave.
There's
Yeah.
the Hummingbird
and
feeder.
from
There's
what
the
I've read,
camera for the
from what I've read, Microsoft has said that they're going to pretty much leave them alone.
Well, because they want all the free code.
Yeah, well,
Hummingbird.
They also want the list of developers. And they wanna
Yes.
review your commits.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
one's
they-
gotta
they-
turn it
They're
back
gonna be
on, it's
recruiting
family
from that source.
So I just clicked on timer off, and almost instantly it stopped flashing.
So all these are wild.
But yes, yeah, they want stuff that. But from what I've read, they're pretty much going to leave GitHub alone. So
That's what they said about Windows
The-
3, and then came 95.
that's what they've said about a lot. Until they do something really.
Well, that's like, Windows 10 was gonna be free too, right? And now if you don't stay within a patch parent
Okay,
level,
okay.
they're gonna
Hey, we're
And everybody
done with
behaves.
Microsoft.
So it's about 20 something.
We're done.
About 20
So,
LP.
um,
About 20
we were
cameras,
talking about time zones though, or
and it starts loading.
Daylight savings,
adjusting
time zone.
for certain things. Obviously this number right here is our adjustment
Seconds
in,
offset.
in seconds. That's our offset for this area.
And it changes
So
channel.
if I click on UTC, unfortunately it doesn't show what the adjustment is, but UTC is 0, and as soon as it refreshes, it should say 10 something, I believe.
10:27.
So I pretty much can change the time zones on the fly, so I could add something that would adjust it either plus or minus an hour, easy enough. Yeah, it's pretty simple. I don't know what I just clicked on, but whatever I clicked on, it's 4 o'clock there. The only one that doesn't work right now is Turkey, because I'm not real sure. Somebody said it's a +3, but I'm not real sure.
I think it'd be more than that, cause, well, maybe not.
I don't know.
London's
Plus
5
three.
hours ahead.
+3.
Well,
That would be minus.
GM,
Be minus.
GM,
Minus.
Minus 1 or 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not plus.
No, we're minus.
Yeah, we're minus.
Yeah, we're minus five.
We're minus.
Britain's zero, so Turkey's east.
Okay.
So they're going to be a plus something.
Plus 3, plus 4, something
Yeah.
like that.
Depends on which half.
And obviously I did not put all the time zones. I mean, there's thousands of freaking time zones if you go and you actually look these things up.
Yep.
I put some of the
Well, if you look at Mumbai, I think it's on a half hour also.
yeah.
The city's so big, it covers two time zones.
Yeah,
Oh, is that right?
so I put some of the bigger ones in there. Now, of course,
That's pretty darn big.
you want if you're going to run this code yourself
Surround the signs then.
and you're not in this time zone, you're going to want to change your offset so you don't have to keep changing it.
Yeah.
But I have the ability to do it. This here is my just for fun start date. It goes on the old TOS scale. Is it still telling me the day? I don't want to see the day anymore. I know what day it is.
Start date.
11805, I think. 807.5.
Got it.
That's just for fun. That's on the old original TOS scale of star date. But that's actually the star date if you believe in that sort of thing. But this one, do what?
They're up there, right?
Yeah. This one here, I'm particularly proud of, but it breaks the system when you come out of it. So I'll pass this around. This is a binary clock.
This is a binary clock, which I've never seen.
That's one of my assignments in my DLC course.
I don't understand.
Make a binary clock.
Not to say I've seen
Build
it.
a binary clock.
Do you do it with the 3 columns
Switch.
or 6 columns, or do you do it with 2 rows?
The
1,
row of LEDs,
0, 1, 1,
So it- toggles the LEDs as it steps through the clock.
So it's, so the first row is 8, 8, 4, 2, 1, and then the second row is 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. It's another one of those, you gotta think about math when you do it.
Get burned into your head after a while.
Yeah, once you start actually looking at it, you go, oh, yeah, that's what time it is.
Like a Larson scanner.
So yeah, it's sort of a Larson scanner. It's not exactly a second. It originally was meant to kind of be a second kind of deal. It's only 24 LEDs across, so it's not quite enough to make a second, a full minute. So I just said, no, I want something there so I know that it's still working, because there's no other animation until it actually changes. And I think it looks kind of cool. Unfortunately, it broke the system when, if I try to exit out of it and go to any other animation, it locked the system up. And I think it's because of the bitwise math that the processor actually has to do is a little bit more than what it wants to do or something. And I think it's taken way more memory and it's froze it up.
They press buttons on the code receiver.
Yeah, and so I've actually built into the code, so if I come out of this, it will reset everything and just go back to 0 and start over again. But
What's the battery capacity?
I don't know.
10K,
The battery capacity?
somewhere around there.
10K
6 maybe.
is all?
I don't know.
Much.
It's a cell phone charger. It's one of those emergency backup.
Yeah, where you can
Yeah, right.
start your car battery if you need to.
No, I don't think it's
So
that
it's
good.
like
Okay.
Yeah, like that. I don't know, it's,
Same thing here, I think. I don't know what this one
the
is.
port I've got it plugged into is 2 amps. And then the other port is only 1 amp.
It's black web,
Yeah, this is okay.
battery.
600, 68,000, no, 6,800 milliamp hours.
I bought one of those at Costco where you can put your cell phone in there or charge your battery or junk your battery.
I'm particularly proud of my binary clock, even though it breaks things.
Or you can put your light or something.
I would think you
Yeah,
could
you
do
can
the
do
math
that,
for
or
BCD.
actually put a alligator put on your battery. Oh,
Does anybody do BCD anymore?
I don't know. Binary coded decimal.
We-
Oh yeah,
Ready to go.
We use it for academic exercises. I don't know if anybody does it in real life.
some of one of those robot projects I did, I used BCD.
It'd be easy to translate for the screen like that.
I didn't think about that. Maybe I might get
It
wood.
might be built into the library.
The library is not the greatest thing in the world.
It's not something that you just cut and paste off tape and ship, was it?
No, I think they actually spent some time making it, but there's the graphics portion of it that I'm actually using to generate most of these animations and stuff. Looks like they were actually using it to make letters instead of actually for graphics, which
Well, it's probably just a kiosk scrolling bar or something. Or, just doing text.
the other weird thing about it, they've got 2 font sets in it. They've got a 5x4 font and they've got an 8x4 font. The 8x4 font works perfect, no problems, works fantastic. The 5x4 font will not scroll at all. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the code and I'm going, why in the hell won't this scroll? Because there's nothing I can see that would prevent the 5x4 font.
You'd think it'd scroll easier.
There's nothing that I can see that would prevent it from scrolling. But I didn't write the library. I'm not in charge of the library. I just modified it. Just enough to make this thing actually interesting, because otherwise if there's no ability to draw any kind of pictures on it, basically it turns into something that just displays letters and numbers.
Right.
And how it's so small, it's such a small display that displaying letters and numbers, it goes by either way too fast or it's just boring. It's just, so don't ask me.
No,
I don't know. I really don't. It just, yep. Something just happened. It locked up.
No, the bar's going back.
Well, you rotten little.
I'm wondering if maybe it updates NTP between every single update. No? Okay.
The binary clock does not. The binary clock only updates after it runs through the cycle like 6 times.
Okay.
The Larson sweep is like 6 times, and then it'll go and update. So maybe. And maybe if it can't connect to the NTP server real easily, maybe that's why it froze up a little bit. I gotta look at that. So this is my wonderful code, and there is probably a better way to do some of this stuff. It just so happens that this was the way I did it because this is the way that made sense to me. Especially when it comes to actually drawing some of these, some of the fonts. So there's the NTP server that we're going to connect to. The DF robot library. You can see we're really only using 3 pins. So there's 30 plus pins on this thing. So there's a lot of pins I could have used. We've got the website server set up and the time offset, which I got from Epoch Converter, because I didn't really know what our offset was. I didn't show it, but on the web page, I could have clicked on do military time, which would have been, you know, everything would have added 12. Basically, the epoch time, when you convert it, it gives you it in military time. So I'm basically subtracting 12. Then I didn't show it either, but if you wanted to see like the leading 0, like, you know, it says 6 whatever p.m., could have said 06 whatever. All that's controllable from the web page. So these are my modes, my default mode. All my crap for the timers. See, I just didn't have it in there. So there's my colon off, so it blinks. All that should make some sense to. So I've set up basically 4 arrays for each number. And I display 1 array each time it scrolls across in any direction. And that was a little tricky to get working because if you really think about it, it's actually erasing part of what's either before it or after it. But that's because they didn't really give me a good graphics library to work with either. So this sets up running a core task on the other core, on the core 0 or core 1 or core 0, some core. Not really needed here because I'm not using their font set at all. I'm using my own custom font set. Basically, I'm looking to see what the mode is, and I'm just changing the case. Then I check the alarms, and all these are routines. Some of the modes I don't want it to scroll off the screen. I want it to do something else, so we're telling it not to scroll. Let's get it down here where some of the fun stuff actually happens. This is I send the whatever binary array to have it drawn out onto the screen, and depending upon where it actually needs to be at on the screen, depends on where I have to start it at. So that's where you come up with, is it in location 1, location 2, location 3 or 4, and those are going to be the offsets to make it actually work, because down here you'll see that it's still drawing out like it's, even though it's a 4-digit array, it's drawing it out like it's a larger array. Because. So I make some adjustments in here. So you've got the start position, and then you've got where I is, where the loop is, and you're tracking back out 8 spaces because of what it's doing, and I made it work.
So is it only driving one letter number at a time? Is it doing the one and then the next and then the next and the next, or is it doing them all?
It depends on which animation. The center out, so I'm drawing 2 of them at a time. I'm doing.
Sure.
If it's sliding this direction or sliding this direction, it's just doing one at a time. So sliding this direction is easy because everything behind it is still blank. Sliding this direction was a little harder because you've still got to keep the stuff that, because if you look at the arrays, there's still blank space in the backside.
Mm-hmm.
So you've still got to keep the stuff that's already been drawn from being erased by the stuff coming this direction. And that's one reason why it's a little bit slower too, because it has to make adjustments for the fact that there's already stuff there.
The data ahead, yeah. Just drawing you
Yeah,
to
and
push.
and for whatever reason, I could not make it fall down right, but I can make it fall up right. I don't know why I messed with it. I messed with it for hours, and I changed numbers, and I just said, I'm done. I don't care. Falling up looks cool. I've actually not seen that particular. I've seen a bunch of them fall down, but I don't think I've ever seen one go up like that. That may just be me. I don't know. So basically, there's also a bunch of. We need to know what number we're sending to the screen, obviously. So up in the main loop, we separate the digits so that there's a little bit of math, it's 10 divided by something, or I would have to look at it again. But you separate your digits so you get the 10 spot and the 1 spot. And you send it down and you tell it, which digit it actually needs to go into. And then this sends that information to the display, and that's how it really works. It's magic.
It was really smooth.
So there's actually a couple of those going on the website. Oh, the website is so long. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The website is so long. Okay, that's the website. This is when you click on a button, you're actually looking to see what the back half of the URL says. So all of that stuff had to be brought down into this so that I could actually make it do something. I'm changing variables around. Most of this stuff actually happens on the fly, but anything that we changed that had to change, like how the display works, it always happens after the refresh. But anything like if I wanted to change the uh, brightness of the screen, it happens instant. It's just done. So there's a bunch of that going on.
Man.
We are up. We are. Oh, there's. I think there's close to 1,400 lines of code. That's why I said there may actually be a better way to do this, because there's a lot of freaking code. There are. You will notice here, like, that appears to be a duplicate of something above, but it's not. It appears to be a duplicate. Well, you notice this says to remove the display. The other one was to draw the display.
All those, but not quite.
So it's actually kind of opposite of the other thing, even though it looks like it's very similar. Same with this, the remove case. So you need to know the numbers that you're trying to remove. And yes, this is almost a direct rip-off of the display case, only instead of displaying, we're removing.
Well, yeah, so you could take that out and call it make it a class or whatever.
Yeah, and if I was building this as a library or something, you could definitely do some other stuff. At this point, I'm not at that point.
We understand.
Yeah. But that would get rid of however many lines of that. Your code
Well,
make it smaller.
it would all just move over into the library, though. It would still be there.
Yeah. I guess if you want to get that fancy.
So this is basically how the center works. So you can see it's drawing 2 images at a time, like right in here. It's drawing 2 of them at a time and moving out. It's a little wonky too because, like I said, you've got to remember that this is a 4-byte array, and 3 of those bytes are erasing as it's drawing. So you've got to take that into account. So my original intent was to actually try to have it from the center remove the array as well, so it would build out and then go back. I couldn't get it to work, so that's the code that was.
All of this is commented.
Yeah, that was the code to make that work, and eventually I will go back and try to figure out why that's not working. So again, so displaying from the center, we need to know a little bit different information because we're building from the center out. So you've got your digits are being sent up to that other function. And you just it's funky, but it works.
How long did it take you to bang this out?
Do what?
How long did it take you to bang this out?
Actually, I did most of this in a day and a half.
Did you cut and paste? You didn't.
Well, all the stuff that was kind of the same I did, but I had to go back and fix
change the things you needed to change.
Well, this is what you use an editor for.
Yeah, I mean all the stuff that's kind of the same.
Yeah. If you feel what they use that, you'd have been the fastest typist in the whole world ever.
This is
That's where it sends out the message.
sends a message. So if you really need to know how to do it, it's basically just sending a URL to Pushbox, and Pushbox is talking to something else, and it works as long as you put the right API calls in there.
Identification in there.
Yeah. So this is the binary clock, and you can see where I've done some bitwise math, shift some bits around, which I don't really think it liked, but
Shift some bits, or
yeah. Yeah, it's what it's doing. It's moving things around to lined up in the right spot. And basically it's pretty simple. Once you draw the boxes out, the boxes are all drawn out as empty boxes, and then you figure out, okay, is this a 1? Is it a 0? Is it a 1? Is it a 0? And
That's the official warning.
just turn it on and off.
Printf string to have it print binary and pull out any single bit. It's ugly, but it would probably, I mean, and you can mask multiple bits. So it may work and may not do as much damage. That's a pretty low level C library.
Anybody have anything they wanna do next week? Next week?
Are you cutting me off?
Yeah, it's 5 minutes still. You cut yourself off.
I cut myself off.
Usually I don't have to remind him to self-destruct.
There's where it draws my boxes. Okay, I'm done.
1,400, 1,500. Do you get validation of delivery on your push notifications?
he's hesitating, so I don't think
I don't